just like seeing her for the first time.
The world has changed, and it's not because of the movement of lithospheric plates or of volcanoception, it's because of the monsters. They suddenly started appearing all over the world, leaving the planet on the brink of extinction. The protagonist stood in a field, and looking at the huge number of monsters, noticed how many there were, and it appeared thanks to the tower, a mystical place that gave monsters strength and power. People called this place the Devil's Tower, they called it that because at that moment, MC remembered being told that he must conquer the tower. Inside is everything one could wish for: power, money, honor. He must conquer the tower, and he will get everything he desires. He must pass all the tests prepared, especially for him. It is a huge tower with floors and godsend. Demons rule it. The rulers of all countries tried to protect people from the tower, but no one managed to stop the attempts to conquer it, as the gods and demons warned all those who prevented others from approaching the tower, where he punished. It had been years since humans began attempting to conquer the tower. The protagonist smiled and said that this was humanity's first attempt to conquer the floor. He stood in front of a crowd of monsters, and at that moment, a powerful pulse of energy flew in front of him and created an explosion. He shouted indignantly, "Are they trying to stop him?" The Star 9 Street Carmen Pellin indignantly shouted, "Does he even understand what he's doing?" The Star 9. Among the millions who took part in conquering the tower, 9 people stood out with the help of magic and divinity. They gained immeasurable power. Kane Pellin, a paladin standing in front of the rest of the 9, told them to be careful, because he is currently unstable. The protagonist raised his hand up, concentrating powerful energy there, and shouted, "How dare they? They think they can resist his will. It won't end with just one death." He was also a star nicknamed the Death Star. He wasn't a master of weapons, nor did he have any abilities, but he was the one who betrayed the 9 stars and received the title of the strongest. His name is Chajin Yuk. The next second he ordered a rebellion. He is the one who brings destruction, the embodiment of death, the greatest necromancer. Many skeletons appeared in front of him and behind him, and he said that it was perfect. He was tired of humans anyway. All he needed was power. He would use them to become the greatest. Kane shouted that he knew he had betrayed humanity and had gotten involved with a demon. The protagonist was indignant. Betrayed. Kane, holding a book, shouted that he believed that they had no choice. Death to the traitor, even though Jinyuk betrayed the 9 stars by striking after receiving power, heckled and defeat them alone. The rest of the 9 rushed to attack. Wishing for his death, they shouted that he should accept the punishment for betraying humanity. The next moment, a sharp spear pierced his body. Jinyuk betrayed humanity for the sake of power. It was just a common legend. He did not betray humanity. In fact, he was betrayed by the 9 stars. More precisely, 8, but people were not told about this. 9 years have passed since then. The protagonist woke up on the bed. In his room, he was completely covered with a blanket and declared that he would return. Damn. 9 idiots. He jumped up on the bed and, looking around, was surprised what he realized that it worked. He clenched his fist in joy. Unthought that he really did it. His secret skill, soul transfer, just before his death. This skill allows him to transfer his soul to a suitable body. It seems that the skill chose a body with similar physical indicators for him, and it seemed like he was still in South Korea. He clutched the bedsheet and thought, damn, the 9 stars, those idiots. He would have been fine if he had gone to the floor alone. They offered to help him and then betrayed him. He remembered kneeling and bleeding, wondering why Kane stood in front of him and asked. He wants to know why they betrayed him. He was sure he couldn't summon his evil spirits on this sacred ground. His sister added the Death Star. Even though they thought he was an army of 1 man, he couldn't handle them. The protagonist, breathing heavily, replied that he was only trying to help. Kane stated emotionlessly, "Nothing personal. It's not that they treat him badly. They just decided to cut him off at the root." Then the MC shouted, "Cho Kyung-hun, is that idiot with them too?" Recalling his friend the 9th Battlestar, he said that he had decided not to participate in the cleansing off the floor. Then he said that they simply didn't tell him because they were afraid that he would help them. He thought that they had caught him. Damn, his vision was blurry. He had lost too much blood. Okay, his miscalculation for him. He would die once, but they must not think that this was the end. With these thoughts, he concentrated the energy in his hand and placed it on his chest. Closing his eyes, he thought that he would become even stronger traitors. He would still take revenge in the present. He gritted his teeth and thought irritably. He hadn't even made them his monsters yet. Now he would definitely make sure to destroy their souls and prevent them from experiencing it. At this moment, his phone rang. He took the device in his hand in surprise and asked a phone. He thought that maybe it was Beck, as he hadn't held anything like this in his hands for a long time, but it was cool. He was surprised. When he saw the date, confused, he shouted, "Has it been years?" In just a moment, years? What is this, an ability? Then thinking, he asked, an ability? Can he even use magic in this body? At that, a fly flew past him. He killed it with lightning speed, clapping his hands. Then he looked at the corpse of Thinsect in his hands and, sighing, ordered it to rise. At that moment, a voice on the phone said, "This is what they managed to find for the query, Rise." The protagonist did not give up. He repeated, "Rise. Come on, Rise." Then, he thought disappointedly that there was not a drop of mana in this body. Then he looked out of the window and asked, did this mean that he had to conquer the tower without any abilities? Then he looked at his phone again and thoughtfully said, "If years have passed, does that mean they have already reached the top?" He scrolled through the news and saw a headline that said Kung Han of the Star had reached the TH floor. He was surprised. Come on, these idiots could only advance floors in years. He frowned and thought, this is his chance. While they are wasting time, he can go up and take revenge. He then put on a hoodie and, as he walked towards the exit, thought there is no use training outside the tower. He needs to go now. Although his body is that of a beginner, his knowledge of the Death Star is still there. He will use all his knowledge and techniques to become stronger as soon as possible. Star. They just have to wait. Will definitely take revenge sometime later. Soul. The entrance to the tower. Many walkers gathered near the entrance. One of them looked up and said that if he could clear the tower, he would also become rich. His comrade looked at him and asked, does he really think he can do it? He will die on the first floor. The protagonist thought, this is a place that holds many stories. The tower. He has finally returned. He, Janik, will make sure that everyone knows about him. The end to the tower is open. The gathered walkers confidently walked towards the opened gate. An MC walking forward with them thought, finally the time for revenge has come. And then the door slammed behind them, and a magic symbol appeared under the protagonist, and the system window that appeared said, "Welcome, Conqueror." He thought that this had been going on for years. The system welcomed him to the training floor. He sighed and thought, damn, training is the only floor with such a stupid difficulty level. It would take a few days to reach the end of the path full of traps. Everyone said that out of the floors this was the stupidest. A system window appeared in front of him, saying that the goal was to reach the destination by overcoming all obstacles. The wounds would heal upon reaching the destination or returning to the starting point. Good luck. He decided that he needed to look at the stats, and after he called up the stats window. It said name Jinyuk, class none, subclass known, talent mana, abilities, strength, 1 experience, 1 agility, 1 traits, gluttony. He thought it was terrible, and then he was surprised. Gluttony and mana, these are not the same stats he had before. Are the traits and talent different just because he changed his body? He stretched his joints and decided that he would get the most out of this training. He pushed off the ground and ran forward quickly along the bridge. The system reported that he had left the starting point. The magic arrow trap has been activated. The next second an arrow flew at him, but he managed to dodge, and noticed that he could see the arrows flying out. He smiled and said that his secret skill was still there, and he wondered if this was too much for training. He did not stop and ran further, and thought that there was still a little left, and saw a huge number of arrows that also pierced his body. He sighed, and then continued on his way, thinking that he needed to run, ignoring the pain. After some time, he approached the starting area, bleeding, and then fell to the floor, and the system reported thought he had returned to the starting point. All wounds were healed. After that he got up on his feet, and decided Thath would see how long he could hold out. He could not mindlessly run forward to features make him the strongest Tonquer on earth. One of them is gluttony. He touched his finger to the blood on the floor, and then licked his finger, and thought that thanks to this feature, he can absorb everything dead and appropriate it. The next second, the spilled blood in the form of energy went to his body, and he thought that the blood he spilled did not have life-giving power, and the From the arrow that flew by will go to him, then a system window appeared in front of him, telling him that he had been awarded all stats had been increased by 1. He put his hand to his chin and thought, this is great experience, increased to get rid of the side effects. You don't have to dig through the settings at all. It will take him a week to complete the training and become a great conqueror. But he will take all the arrows and continue. He will increase the stats through gluttony until he uses them all up. After some time, his stats increased again. A month later, MC was breathing heavily, his whole body was covered in arrows, and he managed to reach the finish line. The system congratulated him on completing the training, and his wounds began to heal. He said that he had to wander back and forth. A whole month has passed. Then he looked at the system window that appeared, which said that several godsend demons have taken an interest in him. Sighing, he turned around and asked what this time. Then he shouted in annoyance again, sick idiots. He thought that the gods and demons, they were looking for someone like themselves. Then the system reported that the god was angry because of his arrogance. He thought pathetic sadists. None of them revealed either Thegid's name or his real name. Most likely they were using some tricks to make him their disciple. The system reported that God was angry because of his arrogance. The demon was amazed at his dishonor. The protagonist thought that headed well in training, no need to command him then. The system noticed that the demon was smiling. The ruler of evil greeted him. How are you? The protagonist shouted in surprise. Bail him again, the damn stalker. He thought the ruler of ball in his past life. He stalked him to make him his servant. Did he recognize him? He was the one who gave him the ability to move souls. He then said, well, he benefited from the movement of souls. What did he give him? The damned stalker. The system window reported that the god is interested in him. The demon is interested in him. The protagonist dindingly pointed at the system window and shouted, they are attracted to him because of him. The ruler of evil, a sked for forgiveness, and the MC, surrounded by system windows, indignantly shouted, can't they shut up? This pisses him off. Who do they think he will choose from them? If they wanted to continue watching, then they should shut their mouths and just watch. The Lord of Evil was offended, and the protagonist said, if he chooses Somion, it will definitely not be him. He cannot dream. And then licking his lips, he asked, can he see the reward for training? He looked at the increased characteristics, and the system also reported that he received immunity to blood loss, pain, unconsciousness, insight, patience. He looked at his hand and thought that this is not bad. Strengthening mana on this floor was not so easy. His talent is mana, so he can increase this, even though it used light-oescent increase. He then looked in surprise at the system window that appeared, saying that the second trait had been unlocked due to progress. He thought a trait he already has, gluttony. He noticed the question marks and thought that he could already see his past body possessed by this trait. Then the ability of multi-face was revealed to him. He was surprised. How is that multi-face? This talent allows you to master any skill technique, does not matter. Skill adjustment is applied during training. During battle, an additional adjustment is made, depending on the skill level. Smiling, he thought that this is wonderful. With this trait is invincible, a title that he could not obtain before, the best title of the Almighty. The next second, the system reported that the evil lord is curious about his stats. He shouted in surprise, what? He then turned away and declared that Bal should forget about this. The Lord of Evil must back away from him and get lost. He turned around slightly indebted that he would be moving on, and he could feel free to come with him. The evil lord then asked if he could join him. He thought that the next room should be a training room. He entered the portal, and the system reported that he had entered a training room. He could choose the weapon and class that suited him best. Once he made his choice, he had to break through the floor to move to the first level of the tower. As he walked forward, he thought that, in his past life when he learned about mana, he had not hesitated for a second and decided to become a mage. However, he took the bow in his hand and ordered it to generate targets. Then he thought, many faces. Why didn't he immediately see the full potential of this skill? The next second, the system reported that the targets were generated. Several targets appeared above his head. He pulled the bowstring and, taking aim, released 3 arrows hitting the exact center of Thetterget's. Then he changed the arrow and ordered more targets to be generated. The system should make it so that Thetterget's could also attack. Then the system warned that he had not yet chosen a class the target could be dangerous. He grinned and said that he did not care. In the next second, the system generated new targets. The settings were changed now Targets could attack the player. Several targets headed his way, but he fired arrows again, hitting the target right on the mannequins' heads. Several more targets got very close to him, but he managed to grab his sword and cut their targets. Then he shouted, "More, we need to do it harder." The system reported that the difficulty was increased. More targets were created. The protagonist pushed off the ground and, jumping in the air, aimed at the target. Landing on it, he thrust the spear right into the center of the target's head, and then he grabbed the daggers and swung it. The next second, felt the targets behind him. Turning around, he realized that it was a long-range attack. The flying targets released powerful energy. The protagonist managed to hide from the attack. He ran to the weapon, and the system reported that the strongest targets that can be represented at this level were generated. He chuckled seriously. This is Thestronist. In that case, he will have to go back to the idea of becoming a mage. With that, he took the staff and saw Thet's targets began to concentrate energy. Smiling, he declared that he was faster. After that, he used the ability Magic Arrow. He released powerful waves of energy, which immediately hit the flying targets. Then he looked at his hand on thought. This is wonderful. I wonder if this is all that the many faces can show. It felt like he had known this kill for 100 years. Then he looked at the system window that appeared in front of him in surprise, saying that he had obtained an achievement. Use at least one weapon from each category in the training room while being omnipotent. Multiclass class unlocked attack points plus, he said in surprise. Multiclass. Is that the name of the class? And the system asked. Does he want to select multiclass as his class? Warning. He cannot select this class when Hell leaves the room. The protagonist thought no. Even though it is a he cannot lose his main advantage. He cannot make this his main class. Then he looked to the side and told the system that he is selecting multiclass as a subclass bet. The system replied that it is impossible. He shouted in confusion. What? Why? The system said that subclasses will only be available after the TH floor. The protagonist thought that he forgot about it. If he does not select a class, he will not be able to exit, maybe use achievement points. Then he asked to unlock a subclass. Can you use each event points to do it? The system was surprised. How did a newbie know about it? The currency that can be obtained through achievements. Achievement points. Using points, players can make changes to the system. He stuck his hand out and said that there is no point in asking how he knows about it. He wants to use points to unlock Sabasis. He hoped it was possible. A system window appeared in front of him and said, Achievement transaction. Unlocking Sabasis required points out of available points. The system said it was possible, but he didn't have enough points. He sighed in disappointment and said he had no choice. He then called Bale and said he would need his help. He had to reveal his identity and talk to him. Doesn't that count as an achievement? A system window appeared in front of him and said, Achievement Evil Lord talked to top demon. Achievement points plus. Evil Lord asked if he had done a good job. The protagonist stuck out his tongue and said he was, begging him not to do that again. The system asked if he wanted to use achievement points to unlock Sabasis. Evil Lord said he was offended. Be the reaction, and the protagonist stated that he really wants this. That system then congratulated him. He had added a subclass multiclass. He will be transferred to the first level of the tower after destroying the training room. After that, he raised his staff in the air and, concentrating energy, said that it seems that the time for revenge has come. Then he hit the floor with his staff, and the system said that he will be transferred to the first level of the tower. Sometime later, the first level off the Coral Forest. Several kobolds were looking around. A group of walkers were looking at the monsters, and one of them shouted, Damn. His partner wondered how they would get to the top of the tower if it was already so difficult. The next second, the monster, sticking out its tongue resolutely, ran to attack the player. Screamed in fear, and at that man, a portal appeared in the sky from which the main character flew out, and seeing the kobold thought, here is his first prey. He swung his leg and landed right on the monster's head. Then he said that they had not seen each other for a long time. The monsters looked at him with anger, and he threw the staff over his shoulder and said, Now kobolds, I wonder how much he will get if he eats them all. The player thought that this was amazing. Did he really defeat Akabald with one blow? He thinks he is a magician, but he defeated a monster with one kick. His comrade said that he has no idea who he is, but they can fight together if they join forces. But before he could finish speaking, the protagonist told him to get lost. The players were surprised what he replied, that if he touches even one, he will die. Did Ho understand? The walkers, trembling with fear, looked at him in surprise, and then abruptly turned around and said, We're going." At that moment, one of the monsters roared loudly. The protagonist paid attention to this and asked, did they want to avenge their comrade? The monsters rushed to attack, but the protagonist put out his staff and, pressing the monster's head to the ground, smashed it. Then he looked up and asked, "What is this doing? Is it not going to attack?" The remaining kobold turned around and started to run away, and the protagonist, concentrating energy in air, asked, "Does it think that he will let it escape?" Then he used the ability Magic Arrow, and it pierced the monster. A system window appeared in front of him, which said, "Welcome to the first floor." As a reward, he received Akabalt Mana Stone. He said that it was too late, he had already fought the monsters. He is currently busy with robbery. The system informed him that he had to complete a task to move to the next floor. Quest description: he must defeat Kobolt's progress. 3 out of he thought that this was easy, he can defeat at least. He put his hand to his chin and thought that it would be nice to get the fighter achievement. If you kill a monster 1,000 times, you can get the fighter achievement. In the past, he passed everyone. To get all the achievements, then, he asked if it was time to eat. He put his hand forward and used gluttony. The monster's soul went straight to his mouth. After that he swallowed it, and noticed that he could see the memories of this kobold. He waited over the power of it. He could now understand the language of the kobolds. Then an information window appeared in front of him. After reading it, he asked, did his stats increase? These are the stats of the TH floor. Then he thought, class adjustment. He is multi-class, so he gets the advantage of each class memories he needs. To hurry, he is starting to get angry. The girl screamed desperately, not a child. The kobold thought he needed to hurry, it will hurt if he hits. All preparations are complete. The kobold lord, the protagonist, smiled and thought that the timing was perfect. Monster Lord is the harbinger of a monster wave. He can get the achievement and level up at the same time. Then Hess said that it would take an entire army to face it. He pointed his hand at the monster's body and commanded it to wrist. The monsters rose into the air and then turned into skeletons, and the system congratulated him on successfully reaching his class. The class was Necromancer. He said that he was all powerful, so he had memories of his past life changing. His class was very easy. He knew that this was not enough. There was also a hidden class, so he needed to go to the first floor. He noticed one of the skeletons looking to the side, and he asked, "What was that?" He looked to the side and saw several kobolds looking at him, and then he said, "Well, his soldiers, it can kill everyone in its path of Torah," while he defeated of the kobolds. Tossing a mana stone, he noticed that it should be around here somewhere. He found it. He looked at the wooden house hidden behind the trees. After that he went inside and thought that fortunately no one touched this place. After that he ordered the skeleton to wait outside. He kicked the floor, and it collapsed. A passage down. The protagonist said, "Bingo." And then he started to go down and thought, a hidden class on the first floor. Necromancer is a high class that allows you to absorb souls. A spiritual master. He threw mana stone Asus. He went down the stairs. He thought that the very first spiritual master was in the coffin of class change. He pulled back the lid of the coffin, and Valken flew out. Valken asked, is he his descendant? The protagonist thought that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. After an awkward silence, Valken said that he didn't think he was surprised at all. He tried so hard to scare him, he even felt awkward now. The protagonist asked, why would a Necromancer be surprised at the sight of a skeleton? He had already read his journal. He had nothing to be surprised about. For a long time he thought the secret item is Valken's spiritual master journal. Of course he hadn't read it in his life. When he changed his class to a mage and lost all his items, he found the journal and returned to the first floor, and when he became a spiritual master, he failed to make Valken rebel. Then the spiritual master said, I see he likes him. He spread his arms out and said that he was better than that Ilmenard idiot who appeared years ago. The protagonist got angry and thought, idiots, should I finish him off? Then he decided that it would be better to change his class first. After that he coughed and said that he would like to change his class quickly. Valken reset. Index finger apologized and explained that he first needed to get to the TH floor. The spiritual master class is higher than even a necromancer. First, he needs to change his class again in the class change tower on the floor, and only then the protagonist interrupted him and said that he was already a necromancer. He could take a look after that. he sent him a system window with information about changing his class. The spiritual master shouted in surprise. He changed his class on his own, without going up to the TH floor. Amazing what talent, he's even better than that bastard, MC asked if he would change his class or not. He replied that he couldn't stop talking. Then he spread his arms out to the sides and released energy from its spiritual master Valkon. A long time ago, before the tower appeared, on the ground he was one of the top walkers, although he was the strongest necromancer. He kept looking for ways to become even more powerful. Skin and bones are not enough. Is there anyone stronger? Instead of a lich or a death knight, he wanted to summon someone, a soul. He would summon the soul of the dead, and then he would be able to create someone who would surpass everyone in the end. He managed to create a new class, the spiritual master, but his old body had used up all its strength, and the spiritual master class was on the verge of extinction, so he chose his final path to use necromancy on himself, hoping that his descendants would honor him, so that Valkon could find a walker to follow in Hai's footsteps. He became half NPC the next second. Energy ignited in the protagonist's chest, and the spirit master cried out in surprise, seeing a terrifying aura surrounding the protagonist's body. He said that this scoundrel he mentioned was the second, and he would be the third spirit master. He could use the soul vessel to catch souls. He could also summon the protagonist. Smirking, mentally thanked him and thought that he now had a soul vessel and his first victim would be him. He had already completed all the preparations. He would not fail twice. The spiritual master congratulated him, and now he must conquer the tower and glorify his name. The protagonist said with a smile, he must do it himself. Balkan was surprised and then shouted, "Idiot, did he forget about the promisoritan?" In the journal, he replied that shifting his work to others is a bad habit. He will fix it, and for free. The spiritual master asked why he was approaching. No way. After that, the protagonist used soul gathering. Energy burst out of his chest, and like tenacious hands took out Vulcan's soul, splitting into individual bones. He shouted, "Does he think he will let his soul be taken?" The protagonist was glad that he succeeded. Vulcan showed him the middle finger and shouted that this is insulting. He knows this well from his past descendant. They will see each other in hell. But the next second, his skull crashed into the barrier, falling to the ground. He was surprised as this magic. Protagonist asked what he thought. Pretty convenient, right? With the magic wall, a low-class spell he created, a personal prison for him. Vulcan started pounding the wall and shouting, "Does he think he can get away with this? He will break this simple spell in an instant." The protagonist asked, "Did he say that was all?" He scattered mana stones along the way. He uses magic to power it. He said that he can easily break this spell, but will he be able to do it before he gets caught? Valkon, perplexed, thought, who is he? How can a first floor walker have such abilities? The protagonist then took off his hood and stated that he failed in his past life, but he will definitely not let him go. In this one, Valkon was surprised in his past life. No way. The protagonist asked, is he still a spiritual master, or can he be considered the third? Vulcan shouted, "Jinyuk." After that, the protagonist used soul gathering, that soul began to be sucked into his chest. Then a skeleton remained in front of him, and the protagonist said not to be upset now that he is with it, all his dreams will come true. After a while, he approached a cluster of skeletons, and the system reported that the Lord of Evil was watching him. The demon watching death was interested in his class. The protagonist thought that gods and demons cannot go to the place of class change. Then he said that he would show it soon. Just don't irritate him. He looked at the skeletons and thought that he will not need this army anymore. He clenched his fists and told this to perish and rise. The souls of the kobolds burst out of his chest, and he said that he thinks that this one can't talk either. At that moment, Valkan appeared behind him and was indignant. "Idiot. How dare he use Hymas, a spiritual soldier?" He replied that this is the first time he sees him in such a guise. He must have been handsome one. He was young. The spirit him shouted that he would not let this go. He must not underestimate him, the first spirit master. He concentrated energy in his hands and rose into the air, but the next second it was as if the air in his slings ran out, and he fell to his knees. The protagonist told him not to overdo it. He was alive thanks to his mana. If he cut off the axis, he would immediately dissipate into the wind. Valkan asked, did he think he would listen to him? A loyal dog. He leaned towards him and asked, does he have a choice? Yes. He turned their souls into a balance, swallowed them. He hoped that he had not forgotten what his specialty was, Balcon thought. Gluttony, does he still have this crazy skill? If he does not obey, he will just swallow him then, he said. Okay, what is he going to do now? The protagonist asked, and he still does not understand. He pointed his finger at the castle on the mountain and said they needed to get rid of this idiot, the Cobalt Lord. After some time, the protagonist arrived at the right. Placetwo kobolds stood in his way. He smirked and released souls, which easily dealt with the obstacle. Then he looked up and saw several more monsters. He thought ghostly cobalt soldiers. They were no match for him anymore, and anyway he was not going to sit idly by. He threw the spear on his back and said with a smile that this should lead him to its master idiot. Meanwhile, Callum the Cobalt Lord asked in surprise an intruder. They must quickly prepare the offering at this point. The protagonist continued to walk deeper into the castle, killing monsters that he encountered along the way. At that moment, a hole opened in the ceiling above him from which several kobolds jumped out, but his souls easily dealt with it, and the protagonist, grabbing his sword, cut the rest of the monsters. Then he said that the hidden class is great. He noticed an approaching aura. The room where the Cobalt Lord is, a system window appeared in front of him, which said that the Lord of Evil was supporting him, swinging lightsabers his side, and declared that he did not need the support of an old man with hairy legs. He would win anyway. Meanwhile, Callum stabbed the dagger into the body and repeated again until he is satisfied. You cannot stop glory to the demon. Wow, it's his death. At that moment, he heard a voice. Let me go, it asked. The next victim turned around and saw two of his subordinates holding Haru, and was surprised. Is it an Oni? Coming closer, he took her hand and laughing asked what they have here, and she will be better than an ordinary person. The next second, her hand was knocked out of his hand by the protagonist, and the Lord, looking at him, shouted, So it was him, the idiot? The protagonist asked with a smile. What was he doing here, making sacrifices, summoning? Okay, it doesn't matter. That Mac, they are finished anyway. Callum looked at him and said, Here he is, the uninvited guest. The protagonist, smiling, assumed, and he must be the Lord of the Kobolds. It is clear from his appearance that he is the leader of Thescom. He indignantly shouted that he is Callum, the king of the Kobolds. A man should show respect. The protagonist noted that he is painfully arrogant for a monster of the first floor. He must force him at this point. Haru, sitting on the floor, did not understand what was happening, but the Cobalt Lord was distracted by this. This was her chance. She got up from her seat and began to run in the opposite direction, but Callum, noticing this, shouted, Where was she going, you wretch? A demon watching death. He must give him power. He put his hand in front of Hyman, began to concentrate energy in it. The protagonist was surprised. A demon watching death. Then the Cobalt King used this ability. A corpse bomb to sharp fangs went straight for Haru. She put her hand forward and then fell to the ground and thought, no, she will not let herself die. At this moment, the protagonist went to her and reflected Callum Sadak. He was indignant his attack. He just went and reflected it. Haru thanked the protagonist, and he said that she forget and just run from here. Then he saw the horns on her head and asked, Is she an Oni? Oni are powerful creatures that live on the 100th floor. They have no reason to go down any lower, especially a lone female, not even Oflegal age. Something happened on the TH floor. We need to save her, to ask her about everything later. Callum continued to shout indignantly, how dare he interfere with the sacrifice to the Almighty. The protagonist said that if she didn't want to die, she should hide somewhere, and he wouldn't stand up for her twice, unheaded for the exit. And then answered, Okay then. The king of the Kobolds shouted that he must try to reflect this blow. A fresh corpse will be even more powerful. The stomachs of his subordinates seemed to swell, and he shouted, Corpse bomb. The next second his subordinates exploded, but the protagonist ran forward and smirked. Too slow, he punched his opponent in the chin, flying back. He wondered where the walker from the first floor got such strength from. The protagonist asked what was he doing. They had just started. Then Callum shouted, A demon watching death, he must save him. The next second the protagonist ran at the enemy, but a huge clot of blood flew out of the container behind the kobold, grabbed his hand, and it turned into a blood golem. The protagonist was surprised. How did he manage to summon such a high creature? Golem hit the protagonist on the ground. Callum laughed and shouted, How did he do that? Did he see it? This is His strongest ritual. The protagonist clarified a ritual. Does he even understand who he is talking to right now? He must let him introduce him to his ritual. Many cobalt souls flew to attack the golem. The creature inflated, and then it exploded, releasing souls out. The king of the kobolds was surprised. He destroyed his golem in a second. The protagonist said that even the lords of monsters do not have such an easy time creating golems. Isn't this his doing? Thiedman, who watches death, Boone the system, reported that he was defeated. Boone nodded silently. Bale looked on with disdain. The protagonist said he was curious about what he could do as a spiritual master, and he summoned a blood golem when he saw it fighting one of his followers, and it was just a puppet. Mana ran outright. That was expected. Boone had summoned the golem on purpose. Callum shouted that it couldn't be. He would find him. He would take revenge. If Hedid, the protagonist, put his hand forward and directed the souls at the enemy and said that it would be nice he had something to tell him. The souls grabbed the lord, and he shouted that this should let him go. He was their king. Have they forgotten a demon watching death? The protagonist said. Boone, his toy is finished in vain. He decided to give him a test. He will regret it, and anyway he will make sure that he pays for what he did. Boone laughed heartily, saying Thathley liked it. The protagonist clenched his fist, and blood splashed in all directions. The protagonist then walked towards Callum and asked if he was alive. The soul burst out of his body, and the protagonist grabbed it and shouted where he was going. Actually, they weren't done yet. He squeezed the soul between his hands and thought. Creating a soul sphere is one of the basic skills of a necromancer. This skill allows you to collect souls and create medicine. Hetton moved it towards his mouth and said, well, he'll have a treat. He then swallowed it and thought that it wasn't cool as he expected. His strength, endurance, and intelligence all increased by 1 point. And he thought that it would be useless once he got to the TH floor. At that moment, Haru walked up to him with her hand on her chest. She thanked him for his help and introduced herself. He replied that she shouldn't worry. He just came to deal with Thecobalt Lord. She replied that she should have thanked him anyway, and then he asked what she would do if he was the bad guy. He could kill her and sell Hirsch. Replied that in that case, measures would have to be taken. The protagonist thought that Oni were very persistent. It came to promises or revenge. Then he sighed and said, typical Oni. Then she had to answer one question. How did one who was supposed to be on the TH floor end up here? She replied that the Oni village was attacked. Protagonist that the Oni in the tower were quite strong creatures. Even walkers couldn't easily compete with them. Could it be one of the 4 great creatures? The source of power were giants. The source of magic were dragons. The Master Seth dark energy were demons, and the wings of vengeance were angels. These creatures kept the entire tower under control. Only one of them, or someone who managed to enlist their support, could have disturbed the Oni like that. Or maybe even the star. It must have been the work of someone related to the squad. Then he gritted his teeth in anger and said, idiots. Haru asked worriedly, is he okay? He answered that everything is fine and he will go. She was surprised where he asked, is she going to stay here among the pools of blood? Then she said, if possible, she would like to go with him. He thought that she was still young, but he could take her with him then. He said that he would be busy so Hugh would not protect her. She answered that she could take care of herself. He noticed that she was almost killed by Akabalt. Just now she indignantly shouted that she had let her guard down. He sighed and answered, okay, she can go with him then. He thought maybe he should change his clothes. It is better not to attract attention with bloody things. And then he noticed the clothes icon above the corpse and wondered equipment. After some time, they went. Haru looked in surprise at the cloud of energy in front of her, and the next second Valken rose from the ground and said, that's it. There is not a single cobalt left within the castle. The protagonist praised him for his excellent work, and Haru asked who it was. The spiritual master was surprised. What kind of girl can she see him? She replied, thought. It was true. Some only have a connection with souls. The protagonist delighted. Thought so. She is special, maybe. He should use gluttony and absorb her abilities. It is still too early. It is better to train her a little. Then her saw a system window appear in front of him which said, a wave of monsters destroying the Lord of Monsters can cause a wave warning after accepting the quest. All safe areas of the first floor will be inaccessible. He smirked and said, bingo Valken. Looking at the system window was surprised a wave of monsters. Haru asked, "He is not going to accept this quest, is he?" He turned his gaze to her and replied, "If he was not going to, he would not have come out this way," the Lord of Evil thought. This was reckless. God is worried about his carelessness. The demon watching over death will give him a reward if he gets to rank 1, he asked. Is this really how he tries to make a summoning? Thesis replied that these are the words of the demon. Watching over death, he closed his eyes and remarked, "This is greed. He will make a decision when he sees the reward." Valken folded his arms and exclaimed, "He can't believe I've decided to die." The protagonist replied that he knows he would rather have him die, since then he will be completely free, but he will be his servant, even after death. Valken shouted, "Stop joking, this is scary." Then the protagonist pressed the accept quest button, and the system warned, "A monster wave has begun. Someone accepted the monster wave. Kobolds are attacking the village entrance soon. All the safe zones of the first floor will be inaccessibly wily." The safe zone of the first floor, the Kobold village. Several walkers shouted in surprise, "What is this? A monster wave? What idiot did this? They will die here if they are done with the task. They must quickly go up to the second floor. Once the wave starts, they will not be able to escape." Then the player grabbed his hand and he demanded that he let him go, and he shouted that he had 3 more quests. He must help the next second. A bright flash lit up the sky. A portal was created from which monsters first crawled out and ran straight to the village. The walkers screamed in fear. "It's too late. Has already started. There are too many kobolds." The next second, a bright column of energy burst into the sky, and the protagonist said that they should get lost if they touch even one. He will get rid of them all. Then they headed towards the monsters. The walkers worriedly that it was dangerous. Can't they see these kobolds? Then the protagonist concentrated the energy. In order to rise, many souls burst out of his chest. Of the walkers shouted in bewilderment, "A necromancer, but this is the first floor. How did he get this class?" The souls and monsters ran to attack Haru, looked at the protagonist, and asked if she could try to kill Twa. Looked at her and said that she should hurry. He didn't think his army would leave her anything. She smiled and asked him that he didn't have to worry. She had an idea. Magical energy accumulated in her hands, and the protagonist thought in surprise. A sphere. The next second, a sword appeared in her hands. The kobold, clenching his teeth, walked towards her. She swung her weapon and cut the monster in half. The protagonist thought that this was a Nuridari sword. This young Oni handled it so deftly. She was probably the target. At that moment, Kim T, a walker, called him and asked who he was. To create a wave, he asked. Who was he? The protagonist clarified, a white swallow. He was surprised, hadn't heard the famous Gildoff. The Pelin brother and sister is a holy land, and the white swallow is their subsidiary guild. The protagonist shouted in confusion. What? Did he just say the Pelin siblings? S closed his eyes and replied that his older brother is in the white swallow. They also want to reach the th floor. He sees that he is quite good. If he talks to his brother, he can too. The protagonist interrupted him and apologized and refused. The next second, the cobalt soul circled the walker and shouted in fear, "What is this?" The protagonist said, just in time to find out something. He put the tip of his sword to the player's head and said that they would meet when the wave of monsters ended. He would need to ask him a few questions. Comrade C shouted. Why did he get in their way? They are comrades. And his colleague shouted, is he intimidating people? Because he is stronger. How dare he? The protagonist asked. Why not? Isn't it all obvious? They are unable to hit, to kill, to steal something on Earth. This is not necessary, but in the tower strength is simply necessary. S shouted that he must let him go. The next second, soul flew away from his body, and the protagonist told him to listen carefully, otherwise he will die. He spared him because he needed to find out something. Then he turned around and told him toast away from him, otherwise he really wanted to hit him. The comrades ran towards him. One of them asked, what Hugh will do? His comrade asked. Will he not even answer? He turned around and shouted that they must run. If he catches Stemthi, will finally. Meanwhile, the battle continued. One of the kobolds pointed his finger forward. The protagonist and the spiritual master were approaching from the sky. The protagonist swung his weapon while Velkin attacked with powerful energy. They directed a powerful energy directly at the monsters, creating an explosion and scattering the kobolds in different directions. The Sprowomeister shouted that there were too many monsters. The protagonist, smiling, said that he would fight back and he should watch. He responded, giving orders. Then they ordered too. Rise. Several skeletons went to attack the monsters. They grabbed it and bit it. The protagonist ordered to turn all the monsters into skeletons. Falcon said that this was not even necessary to ask. The protagonist pushed off the ground and, jumping, shouted, "They will play." Several more bright flashes appeared on the battlefield. The protagonist, swinging his sword, cut the opponents in his path. Haru also did not lag behind and defeated the monsters with her weapon. Then she saw a group of monsters approaching her, and breathing heavily, she realized that there were too many kobolds. The next second, one of the monsters appeared behind her and swung his hand to strike, after which he cut her back. She screamed in pain. Then she frowned and thought that compared to what she had to endure when her native village burned, this was simply nothing. She began to attack the monsters with her weapon, and after a while, she knelt down and realized that she could no longer. The next second, she felt an explosion of energy behind her, and turning around, thought that this was amazing. Looking at the main characters, thought that he was only on the first floor. Where did he get such strength? She needed to stay close to get higher, then she could avenge the village. At that moment, another monster swung his fist very close to her, but at that moment the monster's head flew off. Tuth-side Falcon, concentrating energy in his hand, stood next to her and asked, "Is she okay, oi?" She screamed, "Old man." Then, using her sword as a support, she started to rise to her feet and said that she could handle it herself. Hanatas, that this child was full of determination. What had she been through? She asked why he had helped her. Hell looked at her in surprise, and she said that when she had escaped from the floor, no one had even tried to help. Hirsch could only be glad that no one had hurt her. Was he helping her for his own gain? He replied that he did not know. Ange looked at him in surprise. He explained that spirits must obey the orders of the spiritual master, that waist-higher only job. She put her hands to her chest and assumed that this was Jinyok's order. The first spiritual master explained that he had told him to make sure that she did not die, and that she achieved her goal. After that, he turned around and said that he would go. If he did not help, he would scold him for shirking. Haru squeezed the sword handle in her hand and thought, Jinyok in this tower is the only one who helped her. She will definitely repay him for this. And then, she concentrated energy in her chest and took out a mask from there. After which, she put it on her face. Her eyes lit up, and she opened her mouth wide, screaming. Falcon, turning around, asked in surprise, "A child?" The protagonist also looked in her direction in surprise. Even the monsters stared at her. It was as if she dissolved into thin air, and the next second she was behind the kobold and plunged her weapon into it. She moved forward, hitting her opponents, throwing her head back. She felt drops of blood flying in different directions. Then she turned her gaze to the side and headed towards another group of monsters. The protagonist, watching her, thought that he knew Ithos who attacked the village were looking for her, and this sword, it was better to keep it a secret. If she finds out she was the cause of the destruction of the village. A system window appeared saying that there was minute left. The end of the wave, the protagonist's team continued to deal with the monsters. The first Spirit Master shouted, "Jinyok, the wave gate is shrinking." The protagonist smirked and said that he thought this was the last dune. He swung his sword and then threw it forward, hitting the kobold right in the chest. Then the gate completely tightened and the system reported the end of the wave. He was congratulated for successfully stopping the wave. Smiling, said, "Well, of course." Velka noticed that he really was a monster. Haru's mask dissolved from her face, and she said, "It's finally over." Then, exhausted, she began to fall, but the protagonist managed to catch her by the shoulders and asked, "Is she okay? You shouldn't use such a skill if you're running out of strength." She looked at him embarrassedly and thanked him. Then they looked at the system window, which said, "The wave has ended. Reward for the first, second, and third contribution." The protagonist smiled and said, "Perfect. So where's the reward?"